I have a dream, oh, I have a dream. Red, white, and blue, fly free, fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me?
Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to Changing Times, week number 30. It is October 27th. We are live at the Springfield headquarters of the Axe Media Group out on West Kearney. Don, can you believe that we have now got week number 30?
It's amazing. And they haven't kicked us off, Lynn.
No, so we're still going strong. We appreciate you tuning in today. We realize that not everybody can watch this show at 10 a.m. So the good news is this afternoon you can watch this show on Axe Media Group's Facebook page. You can watch it at any time, and you can watch any of our shows, including human trafficking on week number 1. Want you to know that not only we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Twitter, we're on Daily Motion and Rumble, Daily Motion, Rumble. So that kind of gives you an idea. I don't even know how to get to all those social sites, but you know what? Somebody does, and so they're watching today. And if you like this show, be sure and let other people know that this show is every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and we'll appreciate that, because we're trying to reach people. Everyone that works here at the Axe Media Group is volunteers. Matt is our tremendous producer right there. You can't see him because he's got the camera facing us, but he does a great job. And everyone here, Jim Whining and our CEO and Bishop attorney that runs this group, and everybody else is just very instrumental in making this program work. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So we have a great program today. We're going to continue to talk about suicide prevention, and Don and I and Steff, our guests, and I'll introduce her in a moment, but we were just talking before our show started about, I think this is about our 4th show, Don, isn't it, about suicide. That would tell you that out of 38 weeks, it's not that we're running out of social issues. We have thousands of social issues that we can talk about. So we'll never run out of a topic, and we'll never run out of great guests, because the guests are what makes this show work. But we feel like that suicides are still going up in a lot of areas, and then there are some successes that are going on in certain areas. And so that's why we wanted to bring in this guest today. And she's driven from Lee Summit, Missouri. So that's a 3-hour drive to get here this morning. And so good morning, Steff.
Thank you so much
for
having
you doing?
me.
And
I'm
your
doing well.
last name is Hedenkamp?
Hedenkamp.
Hedenkamp. Okay, very good. And so appreciate you coming in today. And you are involved with a group that's called 0 Reasons Why.
That's right.
And you know, Johnson County is where this project started. And just tell the listeners a little bit about why that started.
Mm-hmm. So in 2017-2018 academic year, across that 13-month period, there were about 15 teen suicides across the 6 school districts of Johnson County, Kansas, which, for those of you that don't know, is a very affluent community in the greater Kansas City metropolitan area. The superintendents came to our company, Overflow, and they asked us for our guidance as they looked to do something different. They really wanted to reach the teens and let the parents know that this was not just a school issue. This was not just a faith issue or a police issue. This was a community issue, and they needed everyone to know that. So we talked about what we might do. We talked about how that might look. They talked about maybe doing a public service announcement campaign, so a series of messages on billboards and radio and TV. And we suggested that that was very one way. That would just be information coming out. And what would you share? Don't do it. Data, it was unclear at that moment. But what we decided instead was that we wanted to create a teen-led storytelling campaign and community mobilization campaign. So we really wanted to figure out how that peer-to-peer learning could happen. Not just teens, but that was really important, but also parents. What do you do when your kid's struggling? Teachers, what do you do when you see a kid struggling? medical professionals, what were they seeing? So like everyone in the community, hearing from people like them. So story, we know at Overflow, that's what we do. We do idea adoption, and we believe the foundation of that is hearing from people like yourself. Community mobilization, we were very aware there were many things already happening across the community, variety of levels of stakeholders who were really concerned about this topic. They weren't necessarily talking to one another, and they weren't necessarily all shoulder to the plow in the same direction. We wanted to bring everyone together, really understand across the continuum of care, from promotion, where the campaign resides, to prevention, whether that be very general or very, very specific, to intervention, to treatment, and then sort of after that, maintaining your mental health. We wanted to understand what were all the assets across that continuum. Were we missing any? A lot of folks were super focused on the downstream, like we have too few hospital beds, for example. And we suggested, let's work upstream from that. Let's talk about what is going on in the campaign. Again, we decided early on, right out of the gate, this could not just be adults talking to teens. That's not effective. So we knew this had to be teen-led. We said, we knew from trauma-informed care, nothing about me without me. So we involved the teens. We established a teen council. We had 2 teens to begin, in some cases just 1, from each of those 6 school districts. And then we had another layer of teens called student ambassadors, because some of these districts, there's 5, 6 high schools. So they're just thousands and thousands of kids. And we knew that we wanted to get down deeper into the schools with some of this. And so we found that the teens, when they got together, really established 3 key pillars that they felt like pretty much everything that anyone did could fall within. They said it's most important that we as a society remove the stigma associated with mental health, that there even is such a thing, that it's okay, you shouldn't have a stigma attached if you have mental health struggles. And they really felt like these 2 other pillars of build community support and commit to education would actually support the idea of removing the stigma. Again, they felt like we're not just students. We're churchgoers, we're scout folks, we have other parts of our lives. We're athletes, we have coaches. So I want to be able to find a trusted adult wherever I go that knows what they're talking about and knows how to help me if I'm seeking help. They also said that it was important to commit to education. It was completely insufficient in their mind to be exposed to the issue or topic of mental health as a 20-minute section in an elective they may or may not take their senior year in high school. They're like, you need to be telling us about this all along. Physical education, PE, we get that all along. Why can't you include mental health as well? Tell me what feelings are. You don't have to tell me about suicide in 1st grade, but let me understand that feelings are normal. And when I feel bad, this is what I should do. And these are the people that should help me. So that piece, those pillars, the fact that it was storytelling and community mobilization and teen-led, that seems to have been a secret sauce. And now this campaign is growing beyond Johnson County. Central Kansas has picked it up across 4 counties and 11 school districts. Sedgwick County is announcing next week, which is Wichita, Kansas, that they are launching with 8 school districts. And the Greater Kansas City Metro has made it possible for every district in that 7-county area to make it come true. So it's expanding organically, incrementally, and in a very authentic way. People really resonate with the campaign.
Well, Steff, that is great. And so that kind of leads me to first point for the listeners today, the people that are viewing today. It started in 1 county, and it's 6 different school districts in 1 county. And it started in Kansas, and now it's spreading all over Kansas and into Missouri. But there's still 48 other states. And if you're watching today, you could start it in your own community. 0 Reasons Why. It's an open resource book that they're going to share with you all their ways and why they did the things they did to start out. And so you don't have to invent everything from scratch. You could take their model and take it to your community, whatever state you're watching from today. And then you can, every community is a little unique, and you can take your uniqueness and your great qualities in your little community, and you can take this whole template and just go with it. And I do agree, Steff, that in all the studies I've done with suicide prevention and things like this, that peer talking to students is the way to go. You're going to get a lot more accomplished, and they're going to listen better than they would if some old man like me was up in front of the bleachers talking to a bunch of students. And so honestly, your model, I think, is a very sound model. And one of the things that I want the listeners to know is that we were talking about this before we started. We're going to go ahead and continue to explore what they do and how they do it. But you know, it's going to take all kinds of strategies out there. Okay, it's not we don't have all the answers in one strategy. It's going to be all types of people and efforts and programs and hopefully, you know, because 15 now they reduced that by what 33% in 1 year.
So
is it still continuing to decline?
we do believe that it has continued to decline. The new numbers will be coming out from Johnson County, but that 33% decline that the Kansas City Star reported on in January of 2020 did attribute the decline to the Zero Reasons Why campaign. And of course, as the public affairs director, I was quick to point out that the campaign is representing many. It is comprised of many, many organizations, not the least of which is the Johnson County Mental Health Center, which has served as the backbone of the campaign. They have made it possible. After the superintendents launched it, Tim DeWeese, who's the director there, he brought it in. He felt like it totally helped to amplify everything that the Community Mental Health Center was doing. And what's interesting to understand about how care is provided in our communities, community mental health centers are the backbone. They provide the bulk of the mental health care in our communities. Not everyone can afford, you know, all the fancy doctors. And so that's where our community mental health centers come in, and they do so much programming. They offer resources for training. They send counselors out to schools. They recommend particular curriculums, whether you want something like signs of suicide, that again is that downstream, what are you looking for when someone's in crisis, or you're wanting to work upstream with a curriculum like Sources of Strength that helps kids understand that they are resilient and they have many, many sources of that resilience within them. So there's a wonderful partnership that starts to grow. And also in Kansas City, Blue KC, a large insurance company, has stepped up to say, we want to make this possible. We want to bring this to schools that can't afford, you know, the little tiny fee. If our teens want to do something like a rally or a march or a mental health week, if there's costs, we want to help pay for that. So it's amazing the cross sector that we're seeing. Churches have stepped up to make it possible. In fact, Church of the Resurrection, the Methodist church that's very large in Johnson County, made it possible for us to create the playbook that you mentioned, which is that idea of documenting everything we've done. How do you lift and shift this campaign from one community in Kansas to every other community that might want it, that's already doing a lot and just wants to do more collectively as a community?
Well, very good. Well, also, Steff, one of the things I think is important to let people know, because I'm really proud of the 6 superintendents. I was on the school board here in Ozark, Missouri, for 2 terms, 6 years, and then went into state politics. But I really feel like a lot of schools, Don, don't you think that in Southwest Missouri, sometimes schools, I know they mean the best for their students, but sometimes they're afraid to discuss suicide, and sometimes it's hard to get a speaker to come in. In fact, I've heard some school board members tell me that well, you know, we almost think that sometimes it gives kids an idea to commit suicide, and we don't want to foster those type of ideas. But I don't think that's correct. Do you?
Well, we know that doing nothing is not the answer.
Right.
And what they're doing with having the students lead the discussion is, I think, where the real value is at with getting to other kids. But, the school board, everybody has to make tough decisions.
Right.
And sometimes I think people make no decision because they don't want to make the wrong decision.
Right.
And that's not what this case. We have to lower that stigma and we have to get the education out there.
Yeah, well, kudos to the superintendents to
But took a chance.
get together and do that. And then also kudos to Blue Cross stepping up in greater Kansas City area. We're going to hopefully keep finding larger corporations to do this, because the superintendents had this vision through your group to get this thing started, but then the adults step away and let the kids run the program.
And to that point, we always feel like the teens come up with some great ideas. One of our teens suggested, let's have a present somewhere. Let's have like a storefront if possible. And Oak Park Mall, which is the largest mall in Johnson County, frankly, the whole metro of Kansas City, stepped up and said, well, yeah, we'll give you a space. We'll give you a storefront. So the teens pitched in and they painted it, and it became this really wonderful sort of epicenter where people were coming by and putting up notes of encouragement, which were then read. I sent a couple of videos for you guys to watch later. And so it's fun to see what the teens encourage one another to do. Another corporate partnership is AT&T. They have their Believe corporate social responsibility program, and their AT&T employees pick for each metro the topics that they wish to support. And in Kansas City, they chose teen suicide prevention. And so that corporate sponsorship led to a whole host of opportunities, including a crisis video series. So for example, Truman Medical Center sitting across from teens, asking them, what would you do if a friend of yours came up and was serious and seemingly suicidal? How would you handle that? So it's walking the teens through real life scenarios of what they would do and how they would handle it and how they would help, and not necessarily worry about breaking a promise to a friend not to tell, right? But actually getting that help to their friend. And so it's just showing kids what's possible and how to break down that stigma. And it's amazing the support that's come forward to date.
Well, Steff, so we'll probably say this at least twice, but how would people, I want to do this now because sometimes people can't watch all 40 minutes. So if you've been interested in what we're talking about and you live somewhere else in the United States and you want to start a program in your own community, Steff, what's their first step? How do they go to get information?
So if you're interested in Zero Reasons Why, and just understanding more what the campaign is and how it does pull a whole community together, zeroreasonswhy.org, and the playbook is available for download there. And there's a whole lot of information on the site itself. You can start to see what we've done. You can look at the social media, which is just the Zero Reasons Why on Facebook and Instagram, and I think we started a TikTok this year. I'm not quite sure, but I'm excited to see what the teens are up to there. But you can start to see the inspirational stories. We don't go deep into someone talking about, their worst moment. We really go deep into where they were talking about how they had those times and they got help and they are now on the other side, and why that matters and why that's important, because they want to make sure no one else faces that alone, or in the cases where we've had teens lose friends, they're really concerned about that not happening to another family, to another lacrosse team, to another school classroom. They really want to keep their friends here. And to be truthful, these kids, they're so inspiring. I get choked up because they say, this is their movement, the movement to make mental health equal to physical health. And they feel so strongly that whatever we need to do, they're willing to do it. They'll go to events, they'll hand out swag, stuff we all get, t-shirts. I've got a Zero Reasons Why bracelet on, banner signing days. Kids come up and write inspiring notes on these banners that go up in the library or the gym. There's all these great pictures you can find about teens, the basketball team, everybody's wearing a Zero Reasons Why shirt, and they meet at half court and they give them to the other team as well. And they say, we may be competitors on this court, but we're all teens and we all want to stick around together. So it's so powerful what the teens do if we just give them the tools. And then, frankly, some of the things they want are system change that they can't do themselves. And they do need us as leaders and superintendents and so forth to make happen.
Well, I hope one of the things, Steph, that the superintendents and administrators at different education centers in this state and all over the country, I hope they listen to the fact that, as you talked a while ago, that students want more mental health training. They want more mental health education. They need to know more about it. And so to know that whether they have negative feelings, positive feelings, whatever, that's all normal. I mean, our whole life is peaks and valleys, and so our whole life, nobody's life is just straight across the board, just great. Okay, and so you got to know how to cope with that. And one of the things that even in St. Louis this last weekend that I really appreciated, we had I was at 4 days of continuing education for the Missouri and Illinois Pharmacy Association, and there was over 1,000 pharmacists there. And one of the lady speakers was talking about awareness, connection with other people, listening. And so I caught myself because I listened to we partnered up, and so I think it's typical, normal that when you're listening to someone else, you're listening, but then you're thinking about how you're going to respond to that person's comment. So that distracts from your listening, because when you're thinking about what you're going to say based on what they're saying, then you're not really fully listening, and you can't interrupt someone. So we'd have to listen for 6 minutes, and we got better at it because I got to the point where, okay, I did not think about anything while they were talking. And so then I heard everything they said. And I think that one of the things there's two things that I want the people that's watching this show to know, that we do need to be better listeners. There's a lot of people out there that are very depressed. They have their lives full of anxiety right now. COVID certainly hadn't helped. And it's separated people, and we're all meant to be together, not separated and isolated. And so we got to listen to what they're saying, and then you have to listen to what they're not saying. Mm-hmm. You got to watch their body motions. You got to watch their body movements, watch their facial expressions and things like that. We need to be more observant to our fellow mankind. If we can be more observant and a little kinder at what we do, then we'll find some of those people that are really hurting and contemplating suicide. So we've really got to increase our awareness of what's going on, don't you think?
I agree. There's also interesting information that's available that tells us that teens are really not so likely to talk to adults, that they're very likely to talk to each other, especially when they're struggling. And so, to your point a minute ago about how those teens want to be equipped, there are several amazing programs, mental health first aid, for example, mm-hmm. and there's a newish teen module of that. So schools can pick that up and bring that in and train their kids how to talk to one another, so that if these signs of suicide are apparent, or even something further upstream from that, just depression, anxiety, despair-ish, those kinds of things can be identified sooner. Help can be gotten sooner. And so that's important to understand. They may not come to the adults in their lives. They will likely go to their friends.
Well, Don, so in Christian County, where Don and I live, which is just south of Springfield, Missouri, Greene County, I think we had 7 suicides last year. Do you think that's right? Between Ozark, Nixa, Clever, Sparta area, 7, and we're about 93,000 people in our county. And I know Johnson County is much larger than that, but gosh, we thought 7 was way too much. In fact, I know that Greene County and Christian County was in the top 10 of all the counties in Missouri.
So it's interesting that you say that. It reminds me how we were invited to come down. When I say we, I mean the campaign. We were invited to come down to Clever. There was an event recently put together by some parents who had lost their children to suicide in the last year. Tasha Massey, she kind of put it all together. We were right across from the Clever High School and just had a nice event where the teens came and talked about having lost their friends or siblings and how they were frustrated a bit with how the schools really didn't want to talk about it. And I understand that tension, that struggle. You know, you have kids who are like, why won't they let us do this? And you got superintendents who are like, yeah, we don't want to go there. You said it earlier. If we talk about it, that'll happen more. That's one of those myths. That's one of the things that we try to dispel. It's some of the old thinking that if you talk about it, it'll happen. And what the teens tell us is absolutely not. If you don't talk about it, it will happen. If you let me talk about it and you acknowledge it, you see me, you listen to what you were saying, and you give me tools and support and help, then it's going to be better than if you don't. So it was really interesting to be able to go to that. We talked to a couple different folks who basically encouraged us that there was maybe an opening with schools, that certainly the sheriff's offices care, the police chiefs, the health centers, even the community mental health centers, Burl, you know, they're all down here. And because Zero Reasons Why functions best when it's working with the backbone of a community mental health center and the school district, certainly that triad works really, really well. We are hopeful that down here in the heart of the Ozarks that can happen. But we also don't push the river. If they're not yet there, it might be another year. And they may feel like, well, if we don't have, I guess 7, that's a lot. But they also may say, well, that's older folks. I don't know. Is it teens?
No, those are teens. All teenagers.
Yeah. So, okay. So it could be getting to that critical mass where they're like, we really should do something different. Not that they're not doing anything, because we know everyone is, but something different.
Well, so I mean, that's a good point. So one of the things that Don and I have spoken on different subjects, it always gets back to the same thing. So, you know, if the school district that you live in is not interested at this point, it doesn't mean that they won't be interested a year from now, like what Steff said. I would advise people to go to school board meetings and arrange to speak to the superintendent or a principal and do it in the right way. You never are going to gain traction by threatening people, talking negatively toward people, being rude towards people or school board. You've got to do it in a positive way and have your facts. And this organization, Zero Reasons Why, has a lot of facts for you. So you've got to know the reasons why that you want that program in schools, and you want to be able to allow children to talk to their peers and go from there. I think the way our world is going, we're going to see more and more emphasis on mental health. I think that it's kind of like the director of the state mental health in Jefferson City. When I had him on my radio show one time about a year or two ago, he was talking about a tsunami that was going to hit Missouri. And then we had to take a break, and I'm thinking like crazy. I'm thinking about, when I think about tsunami, I think about seeing this ocean water just rushing in and destroying all these islands and, all this lives destroyed and property destroyed. I'm thinking about Missouri tsunami. And I thought he's going to ask me a question when we get started again. But no, he was talking about the mental health tsunami. And it was just starting during the beginning of COVID and going through. But I don't think even after we take care of COVID and we get it to where it's calmed down and we'll live with it for the rest of our lives, I believe that we're still really in a thick time of mental health crisis. It just seems that's the way it is and the way it's going to be. So how do we combat that? And I think it's going to be important, like I said, for even church groups. Church groups can talk about
Sure.
it. Businesses can talk about it. Schools can talk about it. I think we're going to need to do that and stuff like that. But
What's great with what they're doing is they're proving that it works.
Mhm.
And so some people need the proof before it gets in.
Right.
And so all the groundwork that you guys are doing and expanding into all of these schools, it's going to come around to be able to benefit all these other schools too.
Right.
Yeah, that's something. One of the reasons I was asked to come and help stand this campaign up was that I had done something similar, a national campaign with all the states involved and coalitions, different organizations, but coalitions of organizations and states. And what I learned from that experience is when a state activates, in this case, when a community activates, and they realize we want to do something different, we want to work more together, it's really helpful if they don't have to reinvent the wheel, start from scratch. If they can say, well, so what do groups like us need to do? What do we do first, second, third, fourth, fifth? When you don't know what you don't know and you don't know what questions to ask, it's tough. So back to your point about superintendents, if you are a parent or a teen and you want to go to the school board and say what you want to say, encourage them to support their superintendent in doing this work, you can emphasize that the 0 Reasons Why and the sort of best practices efforts have to do with sort of asset-based community development, where you're looking at not at what you don't have, but what you do. And whether you have a lot of it or a little of it, still understanding what you have is super important and very valuable. So come to find out in Johnson County, well, there's a lot of resources. Central Kansas, they have a lot of resources and a lot of groups wanting to work together in a very cohesive way to talk about what they do. So we, talk about storytelling. That's a big part of what we do with the campaign. Yes, we're interviewing teens and sharing their stories. Yes, we're interviewing parents and sharing their stories. But we also did a series that hasn't been made published or hasn't, made public yet with the Center for Counseling and Consultation. They're the mental health center out there in Great Bend, Kansas area. They had a story day internally, and like 27 of their staff wanted to participate, to share, this is why I got into this field. This is what I'm seeing these days. This is what's working. This is what's not working. And these are really inspirational stories that we will be able to drip out, if you will, across the campaign for the next 3 to 5 years to talk about, wow, look at all the resources right here in the middle of the prairie.
Right.
It's great.
Well, I tell you what, one of the things that I think about myself growing up, I was in Scouts. You mentioned Scouts while Go Sports. I also did sports in high school and college. But Boy Scouts, I was an Eagle Scout. And, one of the things we learned in scouting was anytime we went on a camp out or a hike or anything, you had a buddy. You never jump in the river without your buddy being right next to you. So you don't jump in the river by yourself. You always want to make sure there's someone else there that could help you if you get into trouble. I wish that schools would have a program so when you start, I don't know whether it's elementary school or junior high or high school, but I don't know what age that people would want to do it. But honestly, if every person, every student had a buddy, it would be awesome, I think, because I was going to ask you, so these kids that are more shy and just really aren't outspoken, like some kids want to talk and maybe talk too much, and others don't talk at all. And those may be the students that are holding back something in their life that is really oppressing them all the time, causing a negative reaction all the time. During this program that you guys have started, do you see any of those kids beginning to open up a little bit?
It's true. And I was just, so many thoughts come to mind as you're sharing that. What we find is the campaign attracts teens from every walk of life. So you have your sort of, teen influencers, the most popular kids, the most driven, and also the most maybe pressured in some cases by their parents or their communities to succeed. You also have people who haven't succeeded, who've been more on the fringes, who have really not necessarily been in the popular stripes of class and so forth. So it attracts a ton of kids from all walks of life who find each other. They feel like it's like a tribe of sorts, here you are. And we've known stories of teachers seeing kids see the bracelets on each other and like strike up conversations that they didn't previously know each other. And that's really interesting. But also, not every teen has whatever that is inside of them that's like, you know what, I'm going to tell my story on camera, or I'm going to do a sort of Humans of New York style photo and narrative for posting on social media. They're like, that's a bridge too far. Not ready for that. So that's okay. Like, for example, that Oak Park Mall and the Teen Inspiration Wall, just reading those, or reading information, or sharing information about what are some of the myths associated with mental health, or sharing some of the resources in the community. Those are involved, that serves the cause, and yet it's not too personal. It's not too close to the bone. Back to your point about the buddy system, absolutely, I totally agree. We know that when teens, especially like integrating into high school, for example, if they don't have a tribe, like my kid, he plays soccer. If it hadn't been for those boys, I don't know, would he have gelled as much? Would he be as connected and enjoying high school as much? Maybe not. It matters that finding your group. Like you said, we're all sort of built for community. But I will tell you, the superintendents need it too.
Yeah.
If the schools feel like, oh, I'm the only one, ooh, I don't know, in a region where that's not been okay to talk about, it's hard. But when we went to Central Kansas, we're like, we're going to wait. We're going to wait until all the superintendents in the region are ready. And then we did. And now we have 11, and they're all there together, and they're like, we wanted to do something for so long. And now they have this wonderful group that they can come to for best practices. What's working, what's not. I have this kid I'm so worried about. What should we do? Those 6 superintendents in Johnson County, they had started with the 6 of them meeting for lunch once a month. And it's out of that core fellowship group that this idea came. They had already gotten their meeting to serve as a cohort of colleagues. And what came from that was amazing. Huge kudos to those superintendents for that vision.
Well, very good. And, I want people to realize this is, combating suicide and working on suicide prevention. It's not a 100-yard dash, is it? I mean, this is a marathon. This is going to be a long distance run. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience and time, a lot of hard work, innovative ideas like you guys have done with Zero Reasons Why, making sure that students are leading the group, because they're the ones that are taking their own lives, and they can make an impact on why that's not good for society. And honestly, really appreciate you being here today. I think it's so awesome. I really appreciate it. You and I have talked on the phone 3 or 4 times, and so it's always good to put a face to the voice. But you are a difference maker. You are being the difference, and everybody in that organization is a difference maker. And that's what's going to make our society, if we can make it better and keep it the way we want it to be. That's the way it is. So are we going to run out of time, Matt?
If so, I got one more thing I want to share.
Go ahead. I think we got 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay.
There's something in the Bible, and there's something in our society that helps us understand that the youth shall lead us. And I will tell you that this work through Zero Reasons Why, and to make these communities work more collaboratively together, it doesn't just serve our youth. If you can imagine, if our mental health systems are working more collaboratively together, that helps our first responders who we know are struggling.
Sure.
That helps our farmers who we know are struggling. So if our societies and our communities can get together and work together better for our youth on mental health, it will serve all of us on mental health.
Oh, very good. Very good. And then Don, next week we're going to be, we've got a football team,
Yeah.
a semi-professional football team
Yes.
that does a lot of things for the Lord.
Queen City Insane Asylum, who are the winners of semi-football. So we're going to talk to them, and they do a lot of stuff in our community.
National champs, do a lot of community good.
Yep.
Play for the Lord.
Yep. Very diverse group.
Yeah. So that's going to be kind of interesting. Older guys out of college and playing semi-pro football and doing it for the right reasons.
Yep.
So that's going to be interesting too. And so that's good. Well, we appreciate you tuning in today, and be sure if you like it, send us a message. Send us a message on Facebook, Axe Media Group's Facebook page. Say, Lynn, Don, hey, you would like to have this on. Appreciate this program. And whatever you want to send us, we'll be glad to reply back to you. Have a great week, and we will be back next Wednesday.
Be the change.